Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Today is going to be a really quick overview of the new Urban Decay The Vice palette. I picked this up for $59 on urbandecay.com. I think I've heard people have already found this at Macy's, and I read that the official launch date at Sephora and Ulta.com is September 27th. So starting off with the packaging really quick, I much prefer this packaging to last year's Book of Shadows Volume 4. I have that palette, love it, I got it for a really good deal, but I never use it because it's so clunky. I really have to think in my mind, there's a particular shade I want to use and then I have to pull it out. It's just a little cumbersome. This is much thinner, much more streamlined, much lighter, and it has, the front of it kind of reminds me of the Urban Decay 15th anniversary palette because of this gemstone looking Urban Decay logo, but the feel of the palette is a little different. It kind of feels like a little bit rubberized, and I've been using this for the past 5 days. And so when I brought it down to do this video, it did have some like makeup smudges and fingerprints on it, but for me at least, this was easier to wipe down than the 15th anniversary palette. That's the one that had the like mirrored top that you would pull off. So comparing the two, I prefer this packaging. To open this palette, there's a large button right on the front, so you pop it and it kind of has like a little bit of a hinge. So this is the angle that it'll sit at, and it has a really large mirror. The only extra that comes with this palette is a double-ended eyeshadow brush, and like all of the Urban Decay brushes, this one is synthetic. For me personally, when I'm using dry powdered eyeshadows, I like a natural hair brush. I just find that it is easier to work with, easier to blend. But after saying that, I like this brush better than the dual-ended brush that came in the Urban Decay Naked 2 palette. The kind of the fluffy blending side is just a smaller version of that one, but the part I like better is the flat shading side of this one is a little bit fluffier, and I find that it grabs a little bit more product than the Naked 2 one. So packaging and extras aside, the reason that I bought this palette is because of the beautiful shades, and it comes with 20 exclusive shades just to this palette, and there are some ones that I have absolutely fallen in love with. There are some that are harder to work with than others, but overall, really impressed with the formula, the pigmentation, and some of the more unique shades. Okay, before we get into swatching and all that, I am going to share the couple of shades that didn't impress me quite as much, and that was Jagged, Provocateur, and Noise. So Jagged is really a beautiful shade. Almost looks like, it's this one down here, kind of like an olivey deep brown, and it just almost looked like dirt when I tried to put it on my eye, and it just kind of crumbled. But after I worked with it a little bit more and just kind of used a patting motion, I can get it to work, and it's just going to be one of those that has a little fallout. And it's kind of the same story with Provocateur, which is a beautiful pink with like kind of a silvery hue to it, and it has some different sized glitter in it. So that one I tried to put it all over my lid, and it kind of ended up being a mess. But then the next day I tried to use it more as kind of like a glitter eyeshadow, just kind of tapped over my lid, kind of like right on the high point of my eyeball, and that worked really well and it was really pretty. The other one that I'm not as in love with was Noise, and that's the really hot pink one right here. And that one has some really large, kind of flat, circular gold glitter in it. And the glitter is not the problem, but the shade is just not quite as pigmented as I would have liked. On my eyes right now, for my brow highlight, I have Anonymous, which is kind of this pale matte cream, just a really nice highlight. And one shade, and I didn't even know, but I had been looking for the shade all my life without knowing it, and it's Laced, which is kind of a cool, almost like a little bit of a plummy neutral. And this is just the perfect kind of crease or blending shade, really flattering, and it just has worked really well with this entire palette. In my outer corner, I have a little bit of Black Market, and when I first saw this, I kind of thought it was going to be an exact dupe for Blackout, but this one has a little bit of a satiny finish, and it's not quite as deep of a black, which is really nice for me. If I already have Blackout, which is, you know, the blackest of the black, this one has a little bit of brown in it. It's just a little bit softer, and it kind of, for me at least, it blended a little bit easier. On my lid, I have two of my favorite shades kind of mixed together, and that is Penny Lane and Blitz. So Penny Lane is this little bit of like an orangey, kind of an orangey gold, and then Blitz is just a really true bright gold. So I just quickly swatched some of the shades that really stuck out to me just with my first few uses. First I have Blitz, which is just a really bright gold metallic, and next to that I have Penny Lane, which it's still gold, but it has a lot more orange, kind of like peachy coppery to it. And while this one is not quite as metallic, it also has some gold shimmer in it. I love a green shadow, and this one is Junky, and it's absolutely beautiful. It has really good pigmentation, and it does have some glitter in it, but I didn't experience too much fallout. I also have this one right here, which is Desperation, and at first I thought this was a matte. It's kind of like a gray, deep brown, but the more I've used it, it's a little bit more of like a semi-matte finish. I'm obsessed with this shade Laced, which is kind of like a mauve-y, pinky neutral, and it's a matte, and it's just an awesome blending crease color. This last one is Nevermind, and it's kind of like a light taupey with a little bit of bronze. Now, while the Vice palette says that it has 20 brand new exclusive shades, there are some similar shades to Urban Decay colors that have been released in the past. And I could be here for the rest of the day trying to compare all the different palettes together, but to me, the one that it most reminds me of is the 15th anniversary palette. And if you've been watching my channel for any time at all, the 15th anniversary palette is one of, if not my most favorite, most used palette in my entire collection. So I'm going to really quickly just kind of like eyeing it and pick some shades that I think look similar between the two palettes and swatch them next to each other, just in case if you already have the 15th anniversary palette and want to know if the Vice palette is worth your time. So this is a really quick swatch of the 15th anniversary palette is on this side, and this is the Vice palette. And this is not a comprehensive list. This is just me looking at both palettes and just quickly swatching colors that look similar to me in the pan. So I'm going to start with right here is Deep End from the 15th anniversary palette, and this is Unhinged from the Vice palette. Okay, the pink, this one from the 15th anniversary palette is Junk Show, and this one from the Vice palette is Noise. Here is Chase, which is one of my favorite shades from the 15th anniversary palette, and this one is Penny Lane. The purples are Half Truth from the 15th anniversary palette and Vice from the Vice palette. And then below are both blacks, Blackout and Black Market. Yeah. So hopefully this just gives you a little bit of an idea if you already have the 15th anniversary palette, if this is something you want to spend your money on. And also, if you missed out on the 15th anniversary palette and always regretted it, the Vice palette might be especially be something for you to look at. Overall, I am incredibly pleased with the Urban Decay Vice palette. Urban Decay shadows are just so well made. The color, the pigmentation, the texture of them, and the ease of blendability is always spot on. I really like the color combinations that came in this palette. Just a really good mix of neutrals and brights and all the different textures. So I am very pleased with this palette, pleased with my purchase. Please let me know if you have any questions down below. I will try to do my best to answer them. Thanks so much for watching.